on the cover of this magazine was this guy named Frankie Bones, and he was sitting on this pile of records. And I just thought that this was crazy that this guy, while I was buying CDs and signing up for these CD clubs to experience new music, that this guy was still buying records. So it sparked my curiosity, and I read the story about it. And then they were talking about this DJ from New York City who was playing at these things called raves. I had never heard the word rave. Growing up in the middle of America, New York City was also feeling kind of like a foreign country to me. My only view of New York was this huge, intimidating city that I saw in movies a lot of times, and then I hear about this guy breaking into warehouses and setting up generators and throwing these rave parties. It just was so foreign to me. I'm literally going up to people in record stores saying, "Do you know how I can connect with people that listen to this music?" My mom was willing to allow me to go to raves with strange people and strange friends that she had never really met before. And this was the year that my dad had died real suddenly of a heart attack. I think at this point my mom's hands were so full with the overwhelming duty of being two parents instead of one that she kind of dealt with this by allowing us kids to kind of beat to our own drums. And I always wonder if my father hadn't died that year, if I always tried to envision the conversation with my father who had died. What would be the answer to, "Dad, I'm gonna go to a rave"? The day I saw DJ the first time, I said, I want to do that. How do I do that? In a way, the journey was just as fun as the destination. Figuring out how much are turntables. Oh man, turntables are $500 each. Oh gosh, I guess I need to find somebody who has turntables, because what if I don't like DJing after all? It can sometimes be a very consumeristic culture too, if you're only taking and you're never giving back, and then it starts to lose a little bit of its magic. One of the ways that I've gotten to keep this spirit alive for me is by trying to make time for newcomers and young enthusiastic people to help them out with their journey, like people help me out, and as a result it keeps me a little young. I kind of long for the days of the mixtape sometimes, where I didn't know what DJ Hyperactive looked like. I didn't know what he did yesterday. I didn't know how great the last party he played was. All I knew was that he was right there in front of me, and that there was a guy with a card table in the back of the room while he was playing, selling his and a bunch of other DJs' mixtapes. And so you would get to know the DJs via that colored cassette with a 20 type Arial font, and that was what you knew about the DJ, and nothing more. I was always drawn to darker and rougher shades of techno, but I'm a pretty upbeat and happy person. And now you're in this world where if you're producing dark and gloomy techno, somehow your Instagram account has to reflect that. You always hear this bullshit about keeping your, quote, brand consistent. But if I'm honest, I like posting pictures of my little dog, my family, and all the silly random shit I see out in daily life. So when this social media thing started really becoming a factor, it threw me for a bit of a loop on knowing where I belonged. At some point, I just decided to own who I am and stop obsessing about always presenting myself as a product. Then this burden kind of lifted off of me. I decided to start going back to clubs again, but this time I'm gonna go on the dance floor. And this time I'm gonna go to clubs because I wanna be there. Because I want to recapture that spirit that was with me when I was at my first raves and hearing my favorite DJs for the first time. I cannot do this sitting at a bar surrounded by industry people. That is not the way that I'm ever going to get in touch with the things that I loved about techno. And I wanted to become a fan of techno again. In my Indiana realm, I was this weird guy that went to these weird all-night dance parties on the weekend and then came back and worked a normal job. Then, coming to Berlin, I was still the weird one, but that was because I was so ordinary by comparison. I was almost like this caricature of the all-American person that you see on a TV show or something. I don't necessarily have this high sense of fashion. I don't have tattoos. I'm so ordinary in such an extraordinary world that sometimes I feel like I'm the freak. If I'm gonna say something, it better be worth being heard. That's kind of my approach to music. And there's this current culture that kind of screams saying it doesn't matter what's being heard, it just matters that you're constantly being heard. And I really try to fight against that. I want to really zero in on music that I can look back on and be proud of. you can spend so much energy throwing food to this hype monster, and ultimately you don't even know if it's gonna love you or kill you. And it's easy to forget to ask ourselves if our art fulfills us personally on a level that's independent of recognition. So I'm going to do things like podcasts whenever I have a podcast worth being heard. I'm going to do a release when I have a record worth being heard. And ultimately, I find that when I set the pace of my process, I'm much better off both in general and artistically.